Welcome back to Utah's Exhilarating Ecosystems with Loveland Living Planet Aquarium. Today we are visiting a very unique ecosystem known far and wide, that is the Great Salt Lake. In this episode, we will be learning about some of the animals that live in and around this famously salty lake.
The Great Salt Lake is really cool. It is a terminal lake, which means that all the water that comes to the lake stays at the lake. It doesn't go anywhere else, so it's a terminal lake. The water that feeds to the lake is the Jordan River, the Weber River, and the Bear River. They all kind of feed it at different locations. And what's really cool is where they feed it, it creates a lot of wetland. And the Great Salt Lake actually is 75% of the wetlands in the whole state. It's a very important bird refuge area. We'll get about 10 million birds will stop here as they migrate from all the way from Alaska to Argentina. The only animals that can live here are brine shrimp and brine flies, and then the birds that eat the brine shrimp and brine flies. It's just so salty that the only thing that they can live in there is micro organisms or phytoplanktons, and that's what the brine shrimp and the brine flies eat, and then the birds will eat all the shrimps and the flies. We're here today at the lake. We're collecting brine shrimp, and we use brine shrimp for all sorts of things at the aquarium. We have a habitat that you guys can all look at, and then we also have some that we use as feeder fish, so we can feed them to things that are smaller, like a lot of our coral fish, a lot of our discus. A lot of fish will eat the shrimp. And then actually shrimp are harvested every year. The females are really cool. When it's summer and it's warm, they can have live births every 4 days. They can have new babies. So that's how they repopulate during the summer, and they can keep their numbers up pretty well. But then once the water and the temperature starts to drop, they'll stop making babies and they'll do what's called cysts or eggs. So what they'll do is they'll have cysts every 4 days, and it makes a film on the top of the surface of the water. So the fishermen, the brine shrimp fishermen, will harvest the eggs by throwing big nets out and collecting them. So the harvest of the brine shrimp is actually regulated by the Department of Wildlife Resources. What they do is they'll collect the water. They'll go out in the middle of the lake, they'll take a sample that's 1 liter, and then they'll count how many cysts are in there. And once they get below 21 cysts in 1 liter of water, they'll stop the harvest. The brine shrimp are left over from when we had giant Lake Bonneville, and so we're pretty sure that the shrimp actually adapted from freshwater to saltwater. Slowly, as the lake evaporated, they reproduced so quickly they can adapt really quickly. The brine flies are just as important as the brine shrimp. They can live in the millions. At some points, there will be 350 million flies within 1 square mile, which smaller number, that's about 25,000 per square meter. But they really feed a lot of the shore birds, the little birds that will kind of walk on the shore and eat them, like stilts and plovers and pipers. They love the brine flies. The Great Salt Lake can actually affect everyone around it, not just because of all the animals that live here, but there are some other things that's very beneficial. We have a couple of plants out here. The Morton salt, that is most people's table salt. Their biggest plant is out here. And then we can also collect magnesium, potassium from the lake. So it's not just for birds, it's actually we can benefit it from humans. Because the Great Salt Lake is so large and the mountains around it, we get the lake effect. But the problem is, if there's no lake, we're gonna have less lake effect, which means less snow, because it evaporates the water and then the mountains drop the water down. So if we have less lake, we're gonna have less snow, which again would mean less lake in the long term. Some of the best ways that we as individuals can help kind of save the lake is conserve water. The smallest things you can do is when you're brushing your teeth, make sure you turn off the sink. When you're doing dishes and you're not actually using the sink, turn off the sink. Don't preheat your shower. That all can waste water that could be coming to the lake, and with no water in the lake means less water for us.
Thank you for joining us as we explored what makes the Great Salt Lake such an iconic part of Utah's landscapes. Becky taught us how we can help preserve the lake by conserving water at home. Visit our social media channels for more episodes of Utah's Exhilarating Ecosystems. We'll see you next time.